Happy birthday to me. Well, today is my 2-year Codependence Anonymous cake day. It's a Friday, and 2 years ago, I started this journey my journey started with how to save my relationship. And that was my main focus to go into a Codependence Anonymous meeting. And I didn't think that I would turn out to have confidence and more self-love 2 years later. I first came into a 12-step program nearing 5 years ago into Alcoholics Anonymous. And then, I was struggling there, and I've always struggled in my relationships, and I started to, enough is enough. Like, how do I have healthy relationships? Where do I go? There has to be something more out there. I got really curious. I started looking, and, I knew about Codependence Anonymous, but I had the wrong idea about what Codependence Anonymous was. I thought that codependence was like I'm a needy, helpless, pathetic person. And I guess what I didn't like about that very wrong belief was that I didn't want to identify as that. And what happened was, when I went to Codependence Anonymous, they said, try 6 meetings before you say that you are codependent, because it takes time to, really, really want to face some of that stuff. And do I really want to do the work right now, or do I want to keep going back out there trying my own way? So, most people just go back out and try their own way. But anyways, I sat in those rooms, and what I learned was that I have a lot of traumas or emotional wounds from childhood, and they don't have to be big and crazy to be of importance. They can be small, medium, large, anything. It can be any kind of dysfunctional issue or way I was raised or happening that didn't get resolved, or maybe there wasn't enough explaining. Anything that my childlike brain interpreted. Basically, my child brain interprets things, and then I grow up with those interpretations, and some of them are wrong and dysfunctional and hurtful to myself and others. And then I turn into a codependent. And so as a codependent, I have issues I have to work on. I have deeply rooted patterns. I don't just have character defects. I have character behaviors that have to be changed if I want different results. Now, in AA, I got my first presentation of what character defects were. And, I used to think even my character defects were an asset at once. I used to just think everything about myself was the way that it was. I'm this way. Who cares? Take it or leave it. Shove it, whatever. I didn't care if there were things rude about me that you didn't like or that were not very nice. I was selfish in that sense and very unaware. And so I learned about these character defects thinking that's me and who cares. But then when I got into Codependence Anonymous, I started figuring out what are the patterns of my character defects? I can identify the main things, but then how am I behaving? Why do I do the things that I do? And what does that look like? So, why, am I stonewalling? Am I pushing people away with aggression? Am I saying not very nice comments to invite anger and shame towards myself so that I can be avoidant? I had all the character patterns. There is probably a dozen character patterns per subject. So compliance, avoidance, low self-esteem, avoidance, control, denial. And there's a lot there. And so when I first went to a Coda room, I uncovered these patterns that I could easily identify that I was. And it was very overwhelming, but I found a sense of relief in that too. I found a sense of like, oh, like here are some instructions. I can completely see myself. I do these things. And I didn't realize that when I'm doing those things, I'm being controlling. I'm in my avoidance. I'm in my denial. And for an example, like my denial, I struggle with this, is I keep thinking that unhealthy people can be healthy. Because I get healthy, I think everyone else is getting healthy. And I have to remember that I might be getting healthier in situations. Doesn't mean that those people are going to see with the same eyes that I see with. That they're not, even though I explain and have some understanding, doesn't mean that they can understand. They can only understand if they have done that work as well. So my denial likes to just pull the blanket over my eyes, and basically I lie to myself thinking, I just forget and think that they can know what I mean. And that always gets me in trouble. So, coming into Codependence Anonymous 2 years ago, it took me a while. I used to do more AA and then Coda, and then now I do more Coda than AA. But that did a lot of, I think I've had a bigger, I had to quit drinking. That had a huge impact. But I think the quality of my life changed when I hit Coda. When I started doing the work in Coda, in Codependence Anonymous, I had a way to be like, okay, I'm going to stop doing that. And then I would practice stop doing that behavior in the week. Then I'd go to another meeting and I'd practice another behavior. I get on the phone, I would practice another behavior. And I did this with help. I did this with keeping connected to my sponsor and learning about how do I have a healthy relationship? And it doesn't happen overnight. I have better awareness now. I have healthier people in my life now. And one of the things I did was I wasn't very good at making friends. I wasn't very good at attracting good people in my life. So I just went I'm not having any relationships for a year. And I mean, not even a friend relationship. I just quit. I quit all relationships for a whole year. Just like in Alcoholics Anonymous, where it's you quit drinking. I just went, I don't trust myself. I don't get into good situations. I don't even know myself. I don't really have a strong connection with my higher power right now. It could be better. I have this, this kind of it just could have been better. I realized that there was a huge thing here for me to work on. And so I quit all relationships for a year because I was I'm really going to figure out how to get really, really healthy and go slow. And then, still I'm not really adding too many relationships to my life, but it really, by taking that break, really slowed me down and then made me way more aware of who I'm talking to. Am I trying to make something happen? Am I trying to make a connection be a connection? And, waiting and watching to see other people's consistency. And what do they ask me about? What do they talk to me about? Learning how to have healthy eyes and start to understand the messages that other people are showing me, instead of my brain wants to fantasize and be oh my God, we're both in Coda, let's be friends forever. No, it's like, I pretty much like go there all the time, or people that I meet out and about. If it's consistent, I meet them in the same place. Say those conversations are healthy every time. When I start to see that health play out, that consistency, the trust, I always feel good around this person. I always feel uplifted. I like who I am. When I start to feel those things and feelings, then I can trust myself enough to move into a different, closer to that person slowly. Like, not just because we go to the same thing. Not just because we're in the same meeting. Not just because. Like, I've added so many more questions and developed a lot of patience, but by taking a break from relationships and taking that time to really understand myself, discover who I am, it made me a little more careful at who am I having near me and into my intimate spaces. And, I went in there to save a relationship. And what happened was I ended up building a lot of self-esteem. I ended up becoming not a control freak anymore. And I want to see things the way that they are. But it took time and practice to let go of the control, to see things that the way that they were. And once you like really learn and grow through that, like I noticed for me, I don't go back. I can see my controllingness, but I don't go back into being controlling, because I know that controlling anything doesn't work. So I get the gifts that I reach for and work for, and then they're with me forever once I got them. So I got some inner strength, and then I started to be like, I like who I am when I go to these meetings. And then that really signaled to me that when I'm around healthy, loving people that want the same thing and desire healthy, loving relationships, maybe they are healthy people, I get to be that version there, and I like who that version is. And life is a lot lighter in those situations. And I feel valued. They value. They are appreciative. But when I'm out in unhealthy situations getting drained, it makes the rest of my life harder, I notice. Like, when I was around this other unhealthy person, I noticed that I was getting healthier, but then every time I'd go near this unhealthy person, all my energy would get drained. And then it was like my workout was harder. Taking care of my kids was harder. Trying to find my peace was harder. And I was like, oh, like I need all my energy just to take care of me and my kids. Like when I have all my energy, I get to have a better life and live better. I'm not surviving. And I used to be in a situation where I was always surviving. I would, go to my parents for a few days just to come back to endure. And that was survival mode, because if I wasn't in survival mode, I wouldn't have needed those long breaks like that all the time. It's like I wasn't in a good place, and I got healthier. And so I'm more mindful of just like when I don't like my energy being drained anymore. And when my energy is getting drained, I first think like, what's happening here that I'm letting my energy get drained? And if I'm around this person, I need to decide how much time I'm going to spend here, and where am I, say, not having good gates? Like I've learning my boundaries and my perimeters, and sometimes stuff gets in and sometimes I can let stuff in, but maybe I was opening my gates too much and I'm letting my energy get drained. So there's a bit going on here. I find energy is very contagious. Energy can take up a whole room, 15 feet. And so I as someone that's in recovery trying to work against codependency, I'm in charge of my own safety, and I'm not in charge of changing people so I feel better. I'm in charge of meeting my own needs and then making that safety come about. Now, 2 years later, this is my 2-year cake for Codependence Anonymous. I mean, it's a free program. That was awesome. And I've just done so much internal work in this 12-step program, more than I think in any other program. And I didn't want to keep getting into unhealthy relationships, bad relationships. And this really gave me new eyes and learning the green flags and red flags. And since learning them and creating green flags in myself just gives me that ability to see it in others, like to see where the growth is, where the recovery is, where the consistency is, where the red flags are. And that gives me so much protection from making sure that I don't get in unhealthy relationships again. And I've developed so much inner power and strength just from going to those rooms. But I went consistently, and I do. And I'm actually just in the process of learning how to create another meeting, which one day I'm going to write a video on that. And it's, the more open I am, the more connected I am, the more my light is open, and the more I do that, the more that the light can come in. And my energy is coming from that light. It's not my energy. But because I stay open and consistent and willing, then that energy lifts me through things in life. So I'm not like that person, that isolated person in active addiction. I'm not in that bad, draining, toxic relationship. Like life is really supposed to be lived, and I'm supposed to have like a good time. I'm not supposed to survive my life. I'm not supposed to survive all the time. I'm supposed to be living. And this was a tool to get to living. So thank you for being here. It's my cake, and it changed my life. So yeah, thank you guys. Thanks for being here.